I think it cost like tens of thousands of dollars 10 years ago. Yeah. And it always works. I think Scott really likes it because the video quality is quite good.
Well, I did say to him, why would you do the hour? He said, oh, yeah.
Yeah, the hours are paying the butt. It's giving us some trouble from board.
Okay, we are on. Thank you.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ordinary council meeting being held at 128 Prospect Road, Tuesday, the 27th June at 7:07. I'd like to begin with acknowledging the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land. City of Prospect acknowledges that we are on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. And now the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Okay. Item number 2 on the agenda on leave, nil. Item 3, apologies. We have an apology from Twin Win. Councillor Mark Groot will be here shortly. Item number 4, declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest, Councillor Rebecca?
Yes, I do. 3.4, the material conflict of interest. I own a property on one of the roads in question. And I'll remove myself.
Yes, yeah. So will you be staying for the debate and voting or removing yourself from the debate? Thank you. Are there any other conflicts of interest? Okay, item 5, confirmation of minutes recommendation there. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett, do I have a seconder? Councillor Stanham, all those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Item 6 on the agenda, public question time, maximum period of 15 minutes in total, maximum time of 3 minutes per person. Presiding member may allow for extensions of time if appropriate. Are there any questions from members of the public? Are there any members of the public? Therefore, there are no questions. Fantastic. Item number 7, petitions, there are nil. 8, deputations, there are nil. There was a deputation planned, but that has been deferred at the deputy's request to the July council meeting. Item number 9, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Great. Item number 10, reports for decision. Let's move on. Okay, item 10.1, fees and charges on pages 4 to 30 of your papers with a recommendation on page 4. Do I have a mover? Sorry, I'll say that again. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett, thank you.
Move it for the purposes of discussion.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I can speak on the board.
Thank you. Is there any further debate that we haven't already discussed tonight? Councillor Rebecca.
I'd like to move an amendment. So I'd like to make an amendment to the recommendation. Having considered item 10.1 fees and charges 23.4, endorses of fees and charges register 2023-2024 with minor amendments, and I'm just going to discuss them. So we may seek leave of the meeting, we may not.
So if you could just get out and read out what the amendment is, I think.
What's the amendment again so that we can record
Okay,
that?
so I've just conferred the director, and one of the things is at the moment it's not clear on the register, unlike Port Adelaide Enfield, how the community discounts are applied. We do actually have that in our policy, but that's not referenced in this document. So what I'm asking, I think the director might be able to help me out. There was a certain page we talked about, hire of community facilities. I think it was,
Page 6.
If we can add an asterisk referencing the community facility hire policy. I think it's 2020, and it is up for review, but I just need to, it would be great to link the two documents, because there is actually a discount part that already exists. It's just not evident on this document. So if we just stick in the second part, with minor amendments.
Is that an amendment?
That's a variation. No, I don't think so.
So just, may I? Through the mayor,
If you like, sit leave the meeting.
through the mayor, councillor, if you were to, essentially what you're doing is endorsing the proposed fees and charges register, having considered, endorses the proposed fees and charges during the attachment, having considered. I'm just noticing that the two recommendations are the same, so you probably delete point 2, is that correct? And just include point 1 with a comma at the end of it, Cheryl, with the following amendments or amendment.
Well, it depends, I suppose, sit leave the meeting, I'll probably jump the other one.
You got other amendments you
Well,
propose
it
as
may
well?
be the other ones.
Well, you're moving the amendment, councillor, so
Um,
this is the one you want to move at this stage?
yeah, I'll withdraw it. But it means I won't be able to move it later.
Someone can vary it.
Someone can.
right?
Yeah, okay, well, I'll withdraw it and then I can talk through it.
You can draw it and talk to it, yeah.
Okay, I'll withdraw it and talk to it. All right, so,
Just to confirm you're withdrawing the,
I am confirming I am withdrawing the amendment. I'll talk to the current motion.
sorry, do we have a seconder?
Yes. We had
Jason.
Barnett and Nelson.
Toast.
Yeah.
Okay, so councillor De Backer.
Okay, so, look, I think you would have seen the email come around. I asked for further information in regards to the usage. So fees and charges, there's some that are legislated that just happen to, but there's actually quite a lot that the community pays for. So either maybe the hire of a room, or it might be hire of a stall at the community fair or things like that. And I guess what we're cognizant of, that if you have a chance to have a look at the breakdowns, 80% of our income, fees and charges, is actually some statutory things like planning and some of the parking, expiations and things like that. I'm really interested in how the community get the most value out of the facilities that we have, and some of the services we provide. And so basically, local community groups that's providing, say it's a local photography, and you're providing a service to the local community that the council doesn't already provide, there should be some incentive for them to use this facility. If it's their facility, they will, pay for it with their rates and things like that. And neighbouring councils have similar programs. And I know with Port Adelaide Enfield, they actually have the discount structure embedded into the fees and charges register. Now, we actually have another policy, it's another document, and we've got user information that comes out the back of Space Decode. So in many ways, if that came to us as a total thing, that would be great. Now, my understanding, having just talked to the director, and I might ask a question through the chair, is that some of that work will be coming back to us with our policy review later in the year. But at the moment, this report, which has come from City Corporate, is kind of to the general public, is separate from those things.
Yes.
So I guess one of the things I've talked to the director about this before is optimizing the usage of spaces and providing flexibility, and certainly we're talking about that at the moment. But maybe just a question through the chair at the moment to the director is how is that coming back to the community for input and review?
Through the mayor, the policy review for the facilities hire policy is the policy that Councillor Bassey is referring to, and it does have a discount process that if you're a community member, you can refer to. So if you're local, you get a percentage off your room hire. So it's just linking those two policies together. But that policy is due for review at the end of this year. So my understanding is it'll be out for community engagement through the normal everyday, I guess, regular policy review process that the City of Prospect would undertake.
So, thank you, Director. I suppose the reason I wanted to move the amendment is so it's clear when this document is read by members of the community that there is actually a discount pathway, which isn't evident in this particular document. So if someone would like to make an amendment or vary the motion to do that, and we are suggesting on page 6 to do a little asterisk or note, and again, minor amendments, but to the effect that, if you're a member of the local community and you're looking for the discounts for community groups, please refer to the following document with a hyperlink.
So you're proposing a variation now, councillor Backer?
I will listen to debate and someone else might want to vary the motion. But
So this is your chance to talk now.
well,
If you finish now, which
if
is
you've got a question.
imminent.
then, well,
I
finish.
I was hoping we could suspend orders because I've forgotten my rush to move it, that if I'm summing up, I can't introduce new material. I don't know what might be new material.
No, but she
So,
can with consent of the
I did have
seconder,
questions
they
to
can
ask,
make a
similar ones
variation.
to Ryan, councillor Baker.
She's the new. So with consent of councillor Nelson, she can make a variation at this time.
So I've been advised that we're not going to suspend many procedures, but as the mover, you can suggest a variation and you need to get the consent of the seconder for that variation.
And does that include some of the matters that I wanted to bring up?
That's what you would bring up as part of your. Well, you can't introduce anything new when you're summing up, but if you'd like to
Do that now.
do that now, then now's the right time.
All right then, so I'm moving a variation.
Which is,
Well, I'll just leave what's minor amendments.
So that's been.
well, hang
Take all
on,
on
should we
one.
finish off with councillor Backer first of all?
Yeah, all right then.
I think we need to finish off with
Yeah,
councillor
sure.
Backer first of all.
I withdraw.
So you're withdrawing the variation. So you've almost used up all your time as well. So
That's fine. So I'd encourage a variation from the original mover to suit the purpose, including the policy document referenced in fees and charges.
great.
I'll leave it there.
Good, right. There's some members of the community have asked to bring up about there could be prospect fair concessions or community groups. For example, if a community group took an information site, just talking about, say, here, so 3x3, they hired a couple of trestles and they hired a marquee. Just for information, that would be $238 for a community group just to be providing their information. And if they were doing the selling, not on the same criteria, it'd be $267. So we're just wondering, somewhere in all this, could there be some concessions for community groups? Because some of the community opinion seems to be that the fair is now really more for commercial groups and not, some of the community groups have been struggling to be able to, not giving enough money to be at the store, even to provide information. So that was one.
So where would that go? So we probably need some words, I think. Councillor Barnett, we
Yeah.
need to know where that's going to go.
Right, well, that there could be concessions for community groups with prospect fair charges. or if they're there, they could be reviewed.
Theo, you've got some information you'd like to discuss.
So through you, Mayor, I wouldn't mind, if I may, councillor Barnett, asking the director to cover off on this, because there is already the capacity for staff to address a reduction in fees and charges for community users at the fair. Director?
Through the mayor, yes, there is, through the facilities and hire policy, and I have done that in the past, the spring fair. I guess we weigh up our options of where we're at, particularly there's a policy and a fee at the moment, which forces us to, we'll look at charging, say, food vendors or someone like that, and 20% of their revenue, which is just really, sorry, taking their, I guess, revenue. So I use my delegation to provide them with a reduced fee.
So potentially, if I can tag onto that, you could potentially apply exactly the same approach to the one suggested by councillor De Backer for your purpose, councillor Barnett, in relation to Prospect Spring Fair concessions for community hirers. We could put an asterisk in there, referring them to the policy and noting that they can contact council if they feel they could use a concession.
Yes, yeah, I think that was made like visible, because, you know, some of the groups maybe didn't know until perhaps an elected member inquired on their behalf, and so therefore, so if it was more upfront and visible, that would be good.
Indeed, and through the mayor, then I might also suggest that when this policy does come back for review, that these sorts of things might be worthwhile to cover off potentially in a workshop. If members feel quite strongly about this, that you might ask for a workshop as part of that policy review process, noting we're probably 6-ish months away from that.
Yes, excellent. And the other one was, I think the matter of risk bonds need adjusting for the Irish Heart Balloon Hire and the balcony hire, because they're quite they're just the same as if you're, I think, memory hiring, say, you know, like all or whatever. There are 3 categories of risk bonds. So I think that needs adjusting for the Irish Heart Room Hire, which is a smaller room and less risk than, say, if you're hiring this room or Eliza Hall, and similarly with the balcony area. Unless it was a bit risky hiring balcony.
The question.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I don't know, does that risk bonds adjustment come in reviewing the policy?
There you go.
Ms. Taylor?
Through the mayor, so the risk bonds are more related to if the room was damaged, how much it would cost us to repair. So some of them, I guess, if I've got terrazzo or wooden floors and that kind of thing, where that it's not so much like there's a bond where people would hurt themselves, it's more about the repair and damage. So that you think about the floor here in TK with big bodies that could fit. So that's sort of where the risk bond evaluation comes through that process.
But Ms. Taylor, I think the question is, if members still feel that the risk bonds are excessive, is the fees and charges the appropriate place for that to be addressed? And I guess, because they are covered in the fees and charges.
All right, so we can note that then for that time, thank you. And also your discounts in the policy are not mentioned for Nailsworth and Paisley High as on our space code booking system, unless I've missed some information. So I think that could be explained.
Sorry, what's the question?
The discounts that
suggestion.
you get, like, as a community group, when you go and online booking through the space code, but I didn't quickly see that was on Nailsworth Hall and the Paisley High those particular discounts.
Ms Taylor?
Actually, encourage the manager recommendations for that answer.
Yeah, sorry, can I just get the question again, what the information is going to use?
Yeah, so, for example, if I go onto the Swedco hire facility, and then there are a few, like if you're a local resident, you get a discount. If you're a community group, you get a discount. But I didn't know where that was reflected. You know, because it just seems that, well, that you're only aware of that if you go on and do that. So where are they in our policy?
Is that the same person that Councillor Dubaka was basically saying
Yes.
about putting it in there? Yeah, so that it is in the fees and charges policy, but yes, if you wanted to put it into this, you could absolutely. It is applied to all of the spaces the same, so all of the spaces would attract the same discount structure.
Yeah.
It's based on the hirer, so not the room, so they're all equally across the rooms, and if you wanted to make that more exclusive, you certainly could. It is absolutely in practice what we do.
Yes, yes, I think again, if what we have in practice is more visible and upfront to for a policy and to people that want to hire the place and look at it. So thank you for that. And also on, I think it's, yeah, it's on the same fees and charges. So with the community bus hire, I was just wondering how, if we've got all these charges, you know, people to hire the bus, and the conditions, but how often is the bus actually available to community outside the use? I don't think there's hardly any smidgen of opportunity, so why would we have it in there? It's really not available. So.
Is that a question?
Yes, question, the chair, which,
I have to throw to the director on that one again.
Ms Taylor?
Through the mayor, the community bus is available to hire after hours. If the charge is on the higher side, it doesn't actually get picked up to hire after hours. We're a little bit, I guess, you don't really want to, with our branding, going out and doing like a Barossa winery tour or too much or anything like that. But certainly we get the occasional interest, but it's the insurance too that would need to be covered. The only thing to provide their own drivers and that kind of thing. We wouldn't provide a volunteer to do that.
So I can pick up on that. There was a service review of a community bus that came back to council, I think about 12 months ago now. And all this was covered off on. I think staff made it pretty clear at the time that the model of renting the bus out after hours is not popular. It isn't widely, or it hasn't widely been marketed either, to be fair. But the costs involved and some of the regulatory challenges have been difficult to overcome, not impossible. But I think the challenge for us is we're not a bus hire company, and there are providers out there who can do it cheaper than we can. And I think that plus accessibility after hours, getting keys to them, that sort of thing isn't easy. So there've been some constraints, not impossible. The question of whether or not we even listed on the fees and charges is probably not an invalid one, given the limited amount of use.
yes, and then it just begs the question to perhaps in reviewing this, why we call it a community bus when it's actually really not. It's only available for specific programs. But anyway, so that's just a comment for any review process. Because people say, oh, we've got a community bus, and it's in the hire things, but then it's, you know, very difficult to hire it. So I think if we try to be a bit more positive upfront approach about it. My last one, I'm going to hear at a time, is dog registration. I just have a question. So does that policy to keeping animals, including distance dogs, from 4 to 31 plus dogs? I've never heard that we're able in the city to be able to have the keeping animals policy that allows us having 4 to 31 dogs. So I just query, is our keeping animals policy consistent with our fees and charges?
So through the mayor, my assumption there would be, and it's dangerous, and I'll flip to the directors in a moment. Councils would need to have such a policy in the event that a commercial kennel or something was approved within city limits. Now, whether we have such a business in Prospect or not, I'm not sure. That is my guess. I can't think of another reason why we would have that, because unless, well, the other thing is if we have dog breeders operating locally as well, you could breed small dogs in a house, and I think you'd be able to get away with that as a home business. Mr. Pearce, Ms. Taylor, any comments around that? Any other thoughts?
Take those and stated in the bylaw. You know, previously there was information, including the bylaws, so I have to take on those. Animal keeping, sorry.
All right, thank you for that. And that's. I require to do anything else to facilitate this
I
process.
think what we need is a varied motion.
I will need consent with councillor Nelson that he's happy with that, if that's everything. Christina, she's happy with that.
These are all things that are going to be reviewed as part of the policy review, aren't
No. What? Sorry, through the mayor, what we're talking about, councillors, is making these changes to the register. Yes? So making it clear within the register that you are adopting tonight that users should refer to our facilities hire policy for information on available concessions on Prospect Fair, community facilities hire of a range of facilities, but I mean, you referred specifically to Nailsworth and Bayindi, councillor, but I think councillor Back is interested in putting them on all our facilities and everything to which the policy applies. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the motion needs to note that the amendments are to clarify within the register the availability of concessions under the facilities hire policy with a suitable notation. Get that, Cheryl?
How long was my friend?
Oh, gosh.
I've got it.
Thanks, Deb. Short-term memory is not fabulous. And then the risk bonds, I think we agreed we wouldn't address those right now unless you've got specific ideas on what they should be, councillor, but that they would potentially be part of a review down the
Yes.
track. Are we getting nods? Then ask Jason, please prepare to listen.
So that's all we're going with.
Yes.
Okay, I need to ask the mover if they're happy to consent to the variation. Sorry, the seconder, councillor Nelson. Okay, so the motion is now varied. Okay,
Thank you.
are there any further speakers? Motion. If not, we will come back to the mover to sum up, councillor Barnett.
And I just do thank everybody that's been helpful. I hope that councils will vote for it.
Thank you for that. Let's put it to the vote now. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, item 10.2, North Adelaide Football Club honorary naming request report on page is 31-37 with recommendations on 31-32. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tweener would like to speak to the motion.
I don't object to this at all, but I do have a question, like how long would the board be, how long would it stay there, or is that,
Is that the club, at the club's discretion, or is that at our discretion? Like, when does it have to be removed, or is there a time frame for it to come off?
There are other parts of the ground that are named, and I suspect there's no time frame for them to be named. That might be outlined in the development application as well, but I suspect it would be there permanently,
Yeah, like I said,
I would suspect.
reading his biography, you know, he's probably he's worthy of his, you know, to have his name there, and, you know, the contribution he's made to the club. I have no objection to this, as long as it complies with development, and the football club is responsible for all the financial costs of directing it. So I don't have a problem with it.
I think that's that second part at least outlined there in the motion. So thank you, councillor Nguyen. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, that's fine.
Does anyone else have anything further to add that hasn't already been said? Councillor Tobacco.
Building on, I think, what councillor Nguyen said about, time frames. Look, I'm always, you know, encouraging of, recognition, and noting that there are good existing ones there, and certainly they're quite stuck. But you realise that often they're designed to be captured by TV cameras, so it's a very fast game, and obviously referring to those sections. Probably just one question through the chair to the director. Is there any intention for any advertising signage underneath, or is it just, I think the other two don't have any advertising signage underneath, so I just wanted to clarify that with the director.
I think it's an image provided as part of the information, which just fairly clearly shows that it's just the Bob Hammond mound.
It is, but I was just wondering, was there an intent for advertising?
I suspect not, but
Mr.
for the
Delaney.
director.
Through you there. No, the intent is to, as is shown, effectively 1.8 metres off the ground, the bottom of the sign, placed against an existing fence, in the location shown. So, just, I would like the opportunity just to say that the North Adelaide Football Club have responsibility and part of the motion in regards to the ongoing, stewardship of the naming of the mound, and responsibility for respect to that naming and the arrangement with the Allen family.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Anything further, councillor Tobacco?
Look, I mean, it's a fantastic oval, and you know, it obviously it's very significant. I did a little bit of research on the gentleman. However, I noticed that the signage is quite agricultural, so obviously designed to be seen from the front, not necessarily from the back, and certainly I'd be looking at any sort of similar signage policy, or I noticed this has been reviewed not that long ago, but you know, the interpretation for all users of the ground, because obviously without knowing who the person is, it's, you know, how if you're walking around the oval, for example, you see the back of the sign, you don't actually, there's no interpretation. Whereas I know there is a, you know, some artwork of some other people associated with the Adelaide Football Club with interpretation, and certainly that's useful for all users of the oval. So probably there more comments, but I'd like to see that maybe in some policies around signage that come back to us, how it's viewed from all angles. And this is its own process to go through, so I'm sort of, you know, rules and regulations around that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll head back to councillor Nguyen to sum up. Thank you, councillor Nguyen. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.3, Community Grants Review Report on pages set out to 46 with recommendations on page 38. Do I have a mover? Ten point three.
Yes,
Councillor Barnett, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion?
no, I think it's been noted in the report, it's due for a review, so I think that's a sensible approach.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hollett would like to speak to the motion.
No, I'm going through it and yes, happy to it to be reviewed.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Just one note on it. In regards to how, yes, I think all this information is great, but I'm just maybe again questioning through the chair. Will the application process or the amount of paperwork deter people from applying for grants? I'm just wondering if the actual physical application process, like say for example, you're applying for $200, is that going to take 10 pages worth and lots of documents to do it? So will the amount of effort be commensurate with the kind of what you're applying for? So it's a question through that.
Do you mean as it currently stands, or because we're not sure what would happen as part of a review?
Yeah. So I guess, is there an intent for that to be looked at as part of the review?
I think we're looking at all aspects of the policy
Can I ask
of the program. Sorry,
just to the director through the chair?
Director.
Ms. Taylor.
Through the mayor, yes, definitely. We're actually having a look too whether we can afford to do them online. So reduce that, but still obviously some people would like the paper based, but all those efficiencies will be reviewed.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Anything further, Councillor Backer? Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll head back to Councillor Barnett for a summary. Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously.
I'm going into one of the rooms. And we're downstairs.
Outside of the meeting.
Outside,
That's
you can't
that's the
see it.
rule.
Yeah.
Okay, item 10.4 quarterly projects updates, report on pages 47 to 81, recommendations on page 47 to 48. Do I have a mover? Councillor Stanton, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, good thing.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hollett, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm happy to just go through any points that anyone has any. Anything I want to raise.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Councillor Nelson.
Just noticed reading through this report, which was a great report. Thank you to the team. There is an enormous amount of budget overruns. My question to the chair is this normal? This is just my line of work. It just seems abnormally huge, the number of budget overruns we have. We're not planning correctly, and we're not doing all the research.
Yeah.
I'll kick this to Mr. Delano before I do. There's a couple of comments I've made from a strategic standpoint. Almost every council is experiencing this sort of thing. Part of our problems are historic. A lot of the projects were costed before the significant increases in construction materials costs that rose for COVID. So we're talking about projects and in some cases have been carried forward or retimed. In some cases from a couple of years ago. That's part of our challenge. And of course, those for which grant funding is tied, we bear all the risk, which means that when there are overages, and members have experienced this very recently in terms of going through the capital projects lists, we wear it. Returning members will be familiar with the fact we had exactly that issue with Broadview and had to swallow a bit of pill with that one as well. But of course, general COVID related price pressures are contributing to this too. Mr. Delano?
Yeah, I think it depends on the nature of projects. There's obviously a number of different. We had a workshop recently on Irish art, and obviously those impacts on those price increases partly because of the length of time that project's been in the system, and not necessarily accounting for the escalation is to the extent necessary. Plus, obviously, the contamination and other changes associated with that project, impacts the lighting, for instance. But what's in the report specifically relates to our renewals, and it does come to scoping. What I've found digging through these with the staff is that, particularly with our reseals, we have found a lot of streets, particularly on the eastern side of Prospect Road, that just have no base. Now that is like the bitumen on clay. It's almost unheard of in local government, particularly in a metro, not having some founding. And last year, particularly on the streets, some of the streets that were nominated, we actually had to go in and actually build a pavement. And once we had profile to surface, so that's a learning. You know, how do we learn from this moving going forward? So in terms of dealing with that, we're actually going to be going for the next 5-year work program and following and doing some geo testing in advance. So we actually determine what the pavement profile is before we go into the profile. Because once you profile the surface and stuff, you have to do something. So there's been some significant overruns that have impacted our capital work program. We have allowances for contingency, but they weren't enough. We'll bump up our contingency next year, and effectively moving forward, we'll be doing some geotechnical analysis in advance of profiling, to just help reduce our risk profile.
Anything else, councillor Nelson?
Not at this stage.
Last chance.
That's
So that's it.
I think Sam's covered most of what the questions that I had.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, again, thanks for the detail in the report, and also I must thank Foster Road resident who's not an elected member, just for clarity, that brought to the attention about the Foster Road brimstone curbing, and then when I raised to the staff, so I thank the council staff that were involved in, saying, well, we haven't got a policy on this, so, we should perhaps bring it and include it in tonight's report. So I think that's, would be a great outcome, and I just encourage that all parts of this report are supported. So I think that would be a fantastic contribution to our heritage, to include that items from 5 and 6. That bluestone curve. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Councillor Tweener Wynn, you're the only one who.
Thank you for the report. I'm just looking at the section that we read, in particular the Livingston Range project. Obviously, there's going to be a delay, and I was just wondering, has there been any communication to the residents there about the delay in the project? I think it'd be good for us to have that open communication with them so that they know that what's going on. Obviously, that project in particular has been delayed for a very long time, and I was just wanting to know whether there's been any communication with them, or when was the last time that we had communication with the residents there.
Yeah.
Mr. Delano?
Through the chair. The second question, I'm not sure. I'll have to come back to you, take on notice, we think when the last time we communicated. With respect to when's the next time we're going to communicate with them. I know we've had these conversations outside the council chamber. We're stuck in a situation at the moment, members, where this is a project that will be over budget. We've made some allowances for the next financial year with respect to that's in the draft annual business plan that's that's been closed for consultation, the council consider in due course. In respect to covering some potential overruns. We had a consultant that's failed to deliver a product to a 30% design, and we've actually had to cancel their contract. We've had to go through a process with another consultant. But what that is, and we've got that in place now, remember, it's full steam ahead. The next 6 to 8 weeks, I'll have an answer for the members, and I've asked for the community. My quandary is that I can't, and I don't want to give an update to the community saying, well, we're progressing with this, but we don't know what we're going to deliver yet. We've got $2.2 million, and I don't know necessarily and what's actually required. The stormwater, there's 2 parts of this project that have emerged. Initially, it was just really a pavement and curb and footpath renewal. But we've got a stormwater project, which is probably of an equal significance and priority that has to be dealt with at the same time, because there's no point coming back in a few years and digging up a brand new road to deal with the stormwater, particularly because of the extent and severity of the drainage issues in some key intersections on Livingston Avenue and immediately adjoining in Morden, Alabama. So, if the council would give us some further time, I think we'll be better informed. And I'd really like to workshop this with the council, like to get to a point where I can understand what we're playing with here. It's just too early. I can go out and provide an interim response to the committee that we're working on this, we're developing a design, but I can't give any more than that. I'd rather wait an extra, say, 2 months and give them further detail. That's my approach.
And just adding to that, I would concur with that. The project is complex. I remember walking Livingston with the former mayor. You've got gradient change from north to south side of the road. You've got pavement issues, curve issues, trees, street trees that are close to the road on a very steep gradient. Obviously, crossovers are very steep. And the stormwater challenge, which was not scoped into the original project. I agree with Mr. Delaney. We want to fix things right first time, and I think the challenges we've had in the past, obviously regrettable. I've said that a lot over the last 2 years. I'm sure you're getting sick of hearing. I'm getting sick of saying it, but hopefully you're all seeing that we are progressively kicking over these rocks, squashing the scorpions, and moving through these challenges. And this is another difficult one that we need to move through. It will be a workshop you will see in the next couple of months. And I think coming out of that, once we have a clear sense that members are willing to either constrain the scope of the project to the budget or increase the scope of the budget to meet the needs of that particular project, which are bigger than what we have money for, then we can communicate clearly to the residents what we can do.
Well, thank you for that explanation, but I still feel that we owe it to the community to tell them, you know, the good, the bad and everything. And if there's, you know, there's challenges along the way for us that we haven't anticipated, they should know that. And they shouldn't have to wait for another two months to sort of get an idea of where it's at. We can just communicate to them that this is what we're facing and this is what we're doing now. So I still feel strongly that, you know, we need to touch base with them rather than now rather than 2 months later.
Can I take that as a comment? Leave it with us as a challenge, and we'll see if there's something we can do that will, I guess, not create unreasonable expectations, but also provide enough information to know that we're moving ahead, and potentially even if we get to a point where we can schedule a workshop, inviting them along.
I think for me, it's just a touch point, just touching base with the residents along Livingston, just to say, hey, we haven't forgotten.
Yeah, we'll do what we can.
Thank you, councillor Nguyen. Okay, so heading back to councillor Stanton to sum up.
I'm good. I think everything's been said.
Thank you. Let's put us to vote. All those in favour, against, carried unanimously. Someone grab councillor Backer and you want to just pause for a minute.
That's why we need the $400.
Such high risk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
Well-
actually not a bad idea. Well, we do have all phones, text right there.
Yeah.
Here she comes.
Okay, item 10.5, Broadview Community and Sports Hub Project Update. Report on pages 82 to 96 with recommendations on pages 82 to 83. Do I have a mover? Councillor Holt, would you like to speak to the motion?
Discussion.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stanton, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will a little bit, just briefly. Am I right in saying that they we're proposing naming the community function rooms upstairs, is that correct?
Yep.
And there's two rooms, and both of them, the A and B room would both be given the same name, but with A and B.
That's what's being proposed here.
I have a question, why are we naming two rooms the same name when we have the opportunity to actually honour two people?
Because open,
I'll have a quick crack. I think that they would have surveyed the likely candidates and arrived at the fact that they thought that he was by far and away worthy enough to name both rooms after. There's a little bit of discussion in the report regarding that process and some alternatives. Anything you'd like to add, CEO?
Mr. Delana?
Yeah, through the mayor, the process that we went through within the report, have been engaging with PRG, getting some recommendations. There were some options for, this is a staff proposal and it's up to the members to decide. That treasurer and all of the, from information provided seems like an ideal candidate. And we looked at the options. There will be time for that function room, and that'll be primarily for pub use, will be open and hired as well to the general public as one room. So effectively, you'll be advertising it as effectively for hire for two rooms. So we thought it would be more simpler if it was actually one name, effectively A and B as an option, but ultimately it's open to the council. They could be named after two people. We just didn't have. There was another candidate that was proposed through the CRG, which was former councillor Alan Harris, and there was another option of I think Galway 1 and Galway 2 proposed by the CRG in the report. What was presented is really for council deliberations and not another way.
Mr. Delana, that would essentially set it up in a similar manner to our current situation with Irish Harp, for example.
Exactly the same. I'll shut one of those.
That makes sense. Thank you, that's my question answered.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Sorry, we've got a second there. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Councillor Nelson?
A handful of questions, if I may, I'll make them quick. Just a question, is there a provision for LDs in the contract? I know that the bill is 6 weeks behind, do we have LDs involved?
Mr. Delana?
Chair, we haven't got LDs in the contract. So that was something we specifically discussed internally up front, remove them. Obviously, you're paying a premium up front. The cost, you're paying for them in your contract price, and the contract will factor that in. So we've agreed to wear the risk in this instance because the economic loss to the council, you know, we're trying to define what these when an LD would eventually normally apply, is probably low. The time of the year when we're getting the facility is in the outside the football season, but the impact of the football club is relatively low as well.
The other one there don't really make sense, but the other one I've got, just with the naming of the oval, just for clarification, this motion doesn't actually put the name on the oval, that's still open for public comment, is that correct?
The Oval's already got a name. I believe.
I just noticed in the, okay, with it? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I was reading through it over the weekend. Make
Yeah.
sense of it.
It's got a different name, yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry, I didn't see that.
There was
I'll read
discussion
that
about the building getting a dual
I
name,
think that was the question.
something at Broadview, but the Oval already has a dual name, yeah.
Yes. So I think I was talking about the building.
Yeah.
That's okay. And just with regards to rental review, I get that it's probably halfway through the year, but I think with the investment we put in, waiting another year for a rental review is probably a bit longer than 2. That's my feeling. I'll leave it open for others.
Take that as a comment. Thank you, councillor Nelson. Is there any further discussion on this motion? That being the case, we'll head back to councillor Hollett to sum up.
Look, great people brought up their issues, and that was a good explanation. I think the fact that it is really one room that can be separated does eliminate that confusion. Look, I'm happy to just go ahead to the vote, and this one I have no other issues on hands.
Thank you, councillor Holland. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 11, general business, urgent items. Are there any urgent items that people would like to raise tonight? Okay, item number 12, reports for information. There's two items, 12.1 and 12.22. We'll just mention with the mayoral monthly report, I didn't attend the Prospect Oval master plan meeting, but I did attend a podcast for Prospect North Primary School. So just a couple of slight adjustments to the mayoral report. Does anyone want to highlight either of those motions? So we're going to vote on block. Okay, looking for a mover. Councillor Barnett, shall I speak to the motions? Oh, sorry, looking for a second, Councillor Nguyen. Does anyone got anything further to add? Councillor Barnett, you seem to need to sum up.
No.
Very succinct. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Okay, item 13, councillor member reports and briefings. Thank you, councillor Barnett, for the details you provided for your report. Looks like you've been quite busy over the last month. Well done.
Oh, yes, I think most of us are busy.
What was your highlight out of all those?
Well, I think it was very gratifying that the Prospect Toy Library that a group of parents started 40 years ago and is being supported by Prospect Council about the last decade. So I think that was really, quite gratifying. Yeah, and also attending the Prospect Lyrical Lions Club Cancer Care Morning. They raised quite a large amount of money. So they're looking at the Lions Club and Royal Club. I think they might make that an annual event as well. Yeah. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other council member reports and or briefings? Councillor De Backer.
Yes, I do. And I'd just like to thank you to Director John Pierce and Director Farley Taylor, just in regards to the Hacky event, which is the Hellenic Chamber of Commerce. What a success. And we had, I think, 3, possibly 4 state members of parliament and Steve Dudum, which is federal. And look, I never, not even at a mid-level, do I recall kind of seeing that and being able to pull that together. So just can I please get you to thank your staff, because I know it was a bit of moving around, but this is where we partner with the community, and we've got, these are also our residents. Not only is it our business community, but they're also our residents. And I think certainly they were very impressed with the facility and having those people in the room being able to see that we do punch above our weight. And I know there's been other conversations had with some of these people, so I think people around the table for that as well, because that all helps getting on the agenda and getting opportunities for partnerships and things like that. The other thing that I attended was put on by the Residents Association, Prospect Residents Association, the Global History Group, and we had Director John Pierce and Scott McCluskey, manager of planning, and it was just fantastic to show some of the pathways for local heritage listing. We've acknowledged in our community consultation that heritage and character is really important to our community, and progressing that conversation with the state. And I think the comparison was the 6 steps to do state heritage listing for local was about 43 plus. So we've got still a long way to go, but certainly we can just push that along and put that together.
Thank you, Councillor De Backer. Any other council member reports and or briefings? Councillor Nelson.
Yes, a few items over the last 4 weeks. Thank you for Cheryl for bringing them up. I said them earlier. Just a number of things there. Obviously, one of the highlights for me, a couple of highlights was the community meeting with LVU on the 7th of June. that was just a really good event to get, I think we had 9 or 10 residents here, and to get just a really open conversation of some of their concerns and everything else was really, really good to get it out in the open. Of course, Australian Local Government Association Conference in Canberra, that Chris and I attended. That was a bit of an eye-opener. We managed to meet a lot of the other councillors and mayors from around the country. Had a meeting with Steve Gujana, City's officers in Parliament House, and then we spent 2 days of listening to a number of debates on 144 motions.
Yes,
144 over 2 days, which was interesting.
all blurred together in the end.
Which was a very interesting time. So anybody that gets an opportunity to attend that in the future, I highly recommend it. It was very, very good. And of course, then I did attend the public meeting for Adelaide for the Aquatic Centre at Eliza Hall on Saturday. And I was surprised the amount of people that actually attended that. I was here for maybe an hour, and there would have been probably 15, 20 people come through. So it's even for being in Prospect and outside that council area, there was a lot of interest in that development. So.
Thanks, councillor Nelson. Okay, sorry, Tweed.
Just want to say that I also attended the Walking on Bed Shields event, and I just want to congratulate the team for organising that. It was very well. There were a lot of people attending that, and it was really good to see people in the audience participating and asking really basic, simple questions about how do we interact with, Aboriginal people, and it was really good for Uncle Tamaroo to, be so upfront and open about, progressing in the future and working together. So I just want to congratulate the team for organising that event.
Thank you, councillor Nguyen. Okay. Moving on to item 14, motions on notice of renewal. 15, questions on notice. Questions for notice of renewal. Okay, now we move on to item 16, confidential items. 16.1, strategic land purchase is a recommendation to go into confidence. Can I have a mover, please? And a seconder. All those in favour? Councillor Barnett, seconded. Councillor Nelson moved. So we'll now go into confidence. Just going to turn off